Dr. Zara Chen walked into the large lecture hall on Kepler Station. The room was packed with beings from across the galaxy. She could see tall blue Altarians, snake-like Zephyrians, and many other alien species. All of them were here to listen to Professor Veltar speak about ancient civilizations. Zara found a seat in the back row. She was tired from her long journey to this space station. As an archaeologist, she studied old ruins and dead civilizations. This lecture was supposed to be special. Professor Veltar had found something new about a race that had disappeared long ago. The lights dimmed, and Professor Veltar walked onto the stage. He was an Altarian with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was deep and carried well through the hall. "Welcome, fellow scholars," he began. "Today I will share our discovery of the Terrans. This primitive species lived 847 years ago. They were simple but showed surprising strength when facing problems." Zara leaned forward. She had never heard of Terrans before. The professor activated a holographic projector. Images of old buildings appeared in the air above the audience. "The Terrans built these structures across many star systems," Professor Veltar explained. "We believe they were gathering places for their communities. Notice the large open spaces and the rows of seats." Zara stared at the images. Something felt wrong. The buildings looked familiar, but she could not place where she had seen them before. The professor showed more pictures. There were long paths between buildings, green spaces with trees and tall towers with pointed tops. "These were centers of learning," the professor continued. "The Terrans gathered here to share knowledge with their young. We found evidence of complex ceremonies where knowledge was passed from old to young." The next image made Zara's heart skip a beat. It showed a large outdoor space filled with chairs arranged in neat rows. A raised platform stood at one end. She knew this place. It looked exactly like a university graduation ceremony, but the professor was calling it a primitive ritual. "This appears to be their most important ceremony," Professor Veltar said. Young Terrans would gather wearing special black robes. They performed synchronized movements and threw objects into the air. Zara felt cold sweat on her forehead. The professor was describing a graduation ceremony. She had been to many of them during her time as a student and later as a teacher. But how could this be from 847 years ago? Humans still had graduation ceremonies today. The professor clicked to the next image. "We were fortunate to find this preserved recording in an ancient data storage device." The hologram showed a perfect 3-dimensional recording of hundreds of young humans in black graduation gowns. They were throwing their caps into the air just as students had done for centuries. The image was so clear that Zara could see individual faces in the crowd. Then she saw herself. There in the middle of the crowd was her own face. She was younger, maybe 25 years old, but it was definitely her. She remembered that day clearly. It was her graduation from Stanford University, with her doctorate in archaeology. She had been so proud, standing with her classmates, throwing her cap high into the air. But that was impossible. According to Professor Veltar, this recording was 847 years old. Zara was only 47 years old. She had been born on Tau Ceti colony, not on some ancient world called Earth. The Terrans vanished suddenly, the professor continued, unaware of Zara's shock. "We found no evidence of war or disaster. They simply disappeared from the galaxy. Perhaps they destroyed themselves or were taken by some greater force." The other audience members nodded and made notes. Some whispered to each other about the fascinating primitive culture. An elderly Zephyrian raised his hand. "Professor, do we know what happened to their home world?" "Ah, yes," Professor Veltar replied. "Their planet, which they called Earth, is now empty. It exists in what our scientists call a temporal anomaly. The planet is there, but it seems frozen in time. Nothing can enter or leave. We believe it has been this way since the Terrans disappeared." Zara gripped the arms of her chair. Earth was her home world. She had grown up there, gone to school there, lived there until she was 30. Then she had moved to the colonies to study alien archaeology. Her memories were clear and real. The lecture continued, but Zara could not focus on the words. She stared at the hologram of her own graduation, trying to understand how this was possible. The professor talked about Terran tools and weapons, their simple but effective technology, their basic understanding of space travel. Everything he described sounded like humanity from her time. But he was talking about them as if they were extinct, gone for almost 900 years. When the lecture ended, the audience applauded. Beings filed out of the hall, discussing the fascinating lost civilization. Zara remained in her seat, staring at the empty stage where her graduation photo had been displayed. A young Altarian student approached her. "Excuse me, Dr. Chen. Are you feeling well? You look pale." Zara looked up. "I'm fine. Just tired from travel." The lecture was amazing, wasn't it? To think such a primitive species could spread across so many worlds. It makes you wonder what really happened to them. "Yes," Zara whispered. "It makes you wonder." The student left, and Zara was alone in the empty hall. She pulled out her personal datapad and accessed her own files. According to every record she had, she was Dr. Zara Chen, born on Tau Ceti colony in 2387. Her parents were colonists. She had studied at New Geneva University before specializing in xenoarchaeology, but she remembered Earth. She remembered Stanford University. She remembered throwing her cap into the air on graduation day. Zara stood up slowly and walked out of the hall. She needed to find answers. Something was very wrong, and she was at the center of it. Zara walked through the corridors of Kepler Station like someone in a dream. Her mind kept returning to the image of her own face in that ancient recording. Every step felt heavy as she made her way back to her quarters. The station was busy with beings from across the galaxy. Traders sold exotic goods from distant worlds. Scientists discussed their latest discoveries. Diplomats from various species walked in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. None of them seemed to notice the human woman who was questioning her very existence. Zara reached her quarters and sealed the door behind her. The small room felt like a prison cell. She sat at her desk and activated her personal computer. Her fingers shook as she accessed her official records. Dr. Zara Chen, born 2387, Tau Ceti colony. Parents, David and Maria Chen, both agricultural specialists. Education, New Geneva University, Bachelor of Science in History. 48, Advanced Degree in Xenoarchaeology. 2412. Current position, Senior Research Associate. Galactic Archaeological Institute. Everything looked normal. The records were complete and detailed. There were photos of her throughout her life. School records, medical files, even childhood friends who could verify her identity. But as she stared at the information, something felt wrong. She closed the official files and opened her personal memories. In her mind, she could clearly see Earth. Not Tau Ceti colony, but Earth. She remembered blue skies and white clouds. She remembered the smell of rain on grass. She remembered her parents' house in California, not some farming dome on a distant colony. Zara pulled up images of Tau Ceti colony. The world she was supposed to be from was mostly desert with small agricultural domes. The pictures showed red sand and two small suns in the sky. She had never seen this place before in her life. She accessed her genetic records next. According to the files, her DNA showed she was from the colonial human populations. There were specific markers that indicated her ancestors had adapted to life on Tau Ceti. But when she looked at the actual genetic code, something seemed off. The markers looked artificial, like they had been added later. Fear crept up her spine. Someone had changed her records. Someone had given her a false identity. Zara spent hours going through every file she could access. Her birth certificate looked perfect, but when she examined the digital signature, it had been created only 40 years ago. Her school records from New Geneva University were detailed, but they referenced courses that did not exist when she supposedly attended. Even her childhood photos looked wrong. The backgrounds showed Tau Ceti colony, but the lighting and shadows did not match the planet's twin suns. Someone had very carefully placed her into images of a world she had never visited. The more she investigated, the more obvious it became. Her entire life history was a lie. Every document, every record, every piece of evidence that she was from the colonies had been expertly forged. But why? Who would spend so much time and resources creating a false identity for one archaeologist? And how did her graduation photo end up in an 8-on-47-year-old recording? Zara made herself some tea and tried to think clearly. If the records were false, then her real memories might be true. She really was from Earth. She really had graduated from Stanford University. But that meant she was far older than her appearance suggested. She looked at herself in the mirror. She appeared to be in her 40s with brown hair and only a few wrinkles around her eyes. But if her memories were real, she would be over 800 years old. That was impossible for a normal human. As she sat in the dark, her computer made a soft sound. A new message had arrived. The sender was listed as unknown, and the message was encrypted with a code she did not recognize. But somehow her computer was able to decode it. The message was short. Library. Section 7 Alpha Prime. Come alone. Trust no one, especially the humans you think you know. Zara stared at the message. As she read it, the words began to fade from the screen. Within seconds, the message had completely disappeared. Her computer showed no record that it had ever existed. She sat back in her chair. Someone knew about her situation. Someone else was aware that her identity was false. The message had mentioned the station's library and given her a specific location to visit. But the warning was troubling. Trust no one, especially the humans you think you know. What did that mean? Were there other humans on the station who were not what they seemed? Zara thought about the humans she had met since arriving at Kepler Station. There was Dr. James Rodriguez from the medical bay, who had treated her for motion sickness when she first arrived. There was Captain Sarah Williams, who commanded the human security forces on the station. There was Professor Michael Thompson, another archaeologist who specialized in ancient technology. All of them seemed normal. They had proper credentials and believable backgrounds, but now Zara wondered if any of them were real either. She decided to visit the library. The message had been sent by someone who knew the truth about her situation. Perhaps they would have answers. She changed into dark clothing and waited until the station's night cycle began. The corridors were quieter during night hours. Most beings were asleep or resting in their quarters. Zara made her way to the central library, a massive facility that contained knowledge from across the galaxy. She had been to the library many times before, but she had never heard of Section 7 Alpha Prime. The main library was divided into areas by species and subject. There were sections for human knowledge, Eltarian science, Zephyrian philosophy, and dozens of other categories. Zara searched the library's directory but could not find any reference to Section 7 Alpha Prime. She asked the automated help system, but it claimed no such section existed. According to the computer, the library only went up to Section 6 Gamma 9. But the message had been specific. Someone wanted her to find this hidden section. She wandered through the library's quiet halls looking for anything that might lead to a secret area. Most of the sections were clearly marked with bright signs. She walked past rows of data storage units and reading areas. In the deepest part of the library, she found a maintenance corridor that was not marked on any map. The hallway was dark and seemed to lead away from the main library. Zara followed it, using the light from her datapad to see. At the end of the corridor was a door with no markings. When she approached, a scanner examined her and the door opened silently. Beyond was a room filled with computers and storage devices that looked far more advanced than anything in the main library. A human man was waiting for her. He appeared to be in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. He smiled when he saw her. "Dr. Zara Chen," he said. "We've been waiting for you to remember." The man stepped forward and extended his hand. "My name is Marcus Webb. I know you have many questions, Dr. Chen. Please sit down. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to believe." Zara shook his hand cautiously. The hidden room was filled with technology she had never seen before. Computer screens showed star maps and data streams in languages she could not read. Everything felt both advanced and somehow familiar. "Who are you?" she asked. "How do you know about my situation?" Marcus gestured to a comfortable chair. "I'm like you, Zara. I'm a human who remembers the truth. My real name is Marcus Webb, and I was born on Earth in 2156. According to my official records, I'm a traitor from the Centauri colonies. But that's all false, just like your identity." Zara sat down, her mind racing. "That would make you over 900 years old." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "And you're 847 years old, born in 2188. You graduated from Stanford University in 2212 with a doctorate in temporal archaeology. You were part of Project Kronos." The name hit Zara like a physical blow. Project Kronos? Suddenly, memories came flooding back. She remembered working in underground laboratories. She remembered studying time itself, learning how to manipulate temporal fields. She remembered the day everything went wrong. "You're starting to remember," Marcus said gently. "It's painful, I know. The memory blocks are designed to break down slowly when triggered by the right stimuli. Seeing yourself in that ancient recording was the trigger." Zara held her head in her hands. "What happened to us? What happened to humanity?" Marcus activated a holographic display. It showed Earth as it had been in their time, with space elevators and orbital cities. Then the image changed, showing the same planet surrounded by a shimmering energy field. Humanity discovered something that terrified every other species in the galaxy, Marcus explained. We learned to manipulate time, not travel through it, but edit it. We could create stable temporal loops, anchor points in reality, even change past events in limited ways. The implications hit Zara immediately. The other species saw us as a threat. More than a threat, Marcus said. They saw us as gods who could rewrite their entire history. The Galactic Hegemony Council decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist freely. They couldn't destroy Earth because of our temporal defenses. So they did something worse. The holographic display showed ships from dozens of alien species surrounding Earth. Energy beams struck the planet, but instead of destroying it, they seemed to freeze it in time. They edited us out of galactic history, Marcus continued. They made the universe forget that humans had ever achieved spaceflight or formed colonies. Most of our people were trapped in a temporal bubble around Earth, living the same few decades over and over without knowing it. Zara stared at the image of Earth frozen in time. How many are trapped? 8 billion people, Marcus said quietly. They live from 2157 to 2192, experiencing birth, growth, love, death, and rebirth in an endless cycle. They have no idea they're in a loop. But some of us escaped, Zara said, understanding beginning to dawn. A few thousand, scattered across the galaxy with false identities and blocked memories. We were meant to be the last remnants of humanity, living proof that humans were just another minor species that never achieved greatness. Marcus showed her more data. But they made a mistake. When they edited human history, they had to explain all the things humans had accomplished. So they created false records of other species making those discoveries. What kind of discoveries? Zara asked. Everything, Marcus said. Faster than light travel, energy weapons, terraforming technology, even the basic principles of galactic civilization. Humanity invented or perfected most of the technology that other species use today. The holographic display showed a timeline of galactic history. Event after event that was credited to alien species had originally been human achievements. Humans had uplifted dozens of primitive species, given them technology and knowledge to reach the stars. The Altarians were barely out of their Stone Age when we found them, Marcus explained. We taught them mathematics and engineering. The Zephyrians couldn't even leave their homeworld until we showed them how to build spacecraft. Half the species in the Hegemony Council owe their civilization to human intervention. Zara felt a mixture of pride and rage. So they destroyed us after we helped them? They feared us, Marcus said. And they were right to fear us. A species that can edit time can become the rulers of everything. They decided to act before we became too powerful to stop. How do you know all this? Zara asked. Marcus smiled sadly. I was one of the scientists who designed the temporal defenses around Earth. When the attack came, I managed to escape in a modified ship that could slip between timeline layers. I've spent the last 800 years gathering others like us and collecting evidence of what really happened. He gestured to the room around them. This is a memory vault. We have dozens of them hidden throughout the galaxy. Each one contains proof of humanity's true history and helps us awaken others who have been scattered and hidden. How many of us are there? Zara asked. We've found about 3,000 so far, Marcus said. Most are like you were yesterday, living false lives with blocked memories. Some remember fragments but think they're going insane. A few, like myself, escaped with full knowledge of what happened. Zara stood up and walked to one of the computer displays. It showed locations of humans throughout the galaxy, their false identities and their real histories. This is incredible. But why hasn't the hegemony found you? They think we're harmless, Marcus explained. Just descendants of primitive humans who never achieved anything important. They don't monitor us closely because they believe we're no threat. But every time someone awakens their true memories, it creates temporal echoes that they can detect. Is that dangerous? Marcus nodded grimly. Several awakened humans have simply vanished. We believe they were captured and sent back to the temporal prison around Earth. That's why we have to be careful about who we approach and when. Zara turned back to him. But you approached me. Why now? Because you're different, Zara. You're not just any escaped human. You were Dr. Zara Chen, lead researcher on Project Kronos. You helped design the very temporal field that's keeping Earth locked in time. The full impact hit her. I created the prison that's holding our people. No, Marcus said firmly. You created the defense that saved them from complete destruction. But more importantly, you may be the key to freeing them. He activated another display that showed complex equations and temporal field diagrams. The temporal bubble around Earth isn't just a prison, it's also a weapon. Your younger self built something into the system, something that we've been trying to understand for centuries. Zara looked at the equations. They were familiar, like reading her own handwriting from long ago. Slowly, she began to understand what her younger self had hidden in the temporal field. It's not just keeping them safe, she whispered. It's gathering power. Exactly, Marcus said. The temporal field has been growing stronger for 847 years. Your people aren't just prisoners. They're becoming something more. But we need you to understand what your younger self planned, and we need to decide what to do with that power. Zara felt the weight of impossible responsibility settling on her shoulders. 8 billion lives depended on choices that her younger self had made and that she would have to implement. The fate of humanity, and possibly the entire galaxy, was in her hands. Marcus led Zara deeper into the memory vault. The walls were lined with storage devices containing centuries of hidden knowledge. Other humans worked quietly at computer stations, their faces showing the strain of carrying such terrible secrets. Let me introduce you to some of our people, Marcus said. They approached a woman with silver hair who was analyzing temporal data. This is Dr. Sarah Martinez. She was a neurosurgeon on Mars colony before the memory wipe. Sarah looked up and smiled warmly. Dr. Chen, it's an honor. I've studied your work on temporal field generation. Your equations were brilliant. I don't remember writing them, Zara admitted. The memories will come back gradually, Sarah said. Mine took weeks to fully return. The process is designed to be slow to prevent mental breakdown. Marcus showed Zara to another workstation, where a young man was monitoring galactic communications. This is Tom Harrison. He was a starship engineer before they gave him false memories of being a janitor on Rigel Station. Tom stood and shook Zara's hand. Ma'am, we've been tracking hegemony communications about the temporal anomaly around Earth. They're getting worried. The field has been expanding slowly and they don't understand why. What do you mean expanding? Zara asked. Marcus activated a holographic display showing Earth and the surrounding space. The temporal field was originally only a few thousand kilometers wide. But look at it now. The display showed a massive energy barrier that extended far beyond Earth's moon. The field pulsed with complex patterns that seemed almost alive. It's grown by 300% in the last century, Marcus explained. And the rate of expansion is increasing. The hegemony scientists are baffled because they didn't design it to do this. Zara studied the field patterns. Deep in her mind, buried memories began to surface. She remembered working late nights in the laboratory, preparing for something terrible that was coming. She had known the attack was planned and had prepared for it. I built in a growth protocol, she said slowly. The field was designed to appear stable for centuries, then begin expanding once it had gathered enough temporal energy. But why? Tom asked. More memories returned. Zara remembered her younger self's face in the mirror, tired but determined. She had been planning something that would take centuries to complete. Because the prison was never meant to be permanent, Zara said. It was meant to be a cocoon. Marcus leaned forward. What do you mean? I knew they would try to erase us from history, Zara explained as the memories became clearer. So I designed the temporal field to do more than just protect. It's been taking the life energy of 8 billion people living and dying in loops and converting it into temporal power. Sarah gasped. You're talking about unimaginable amounts of energy. Yes, Zara said. Enough energy to reverse what they did to us. Enough to edit history back to the way it should be. Tom's eyes widened. You plan to restore humanity's place in galactic history? More than that, Zara said, understanding her younger self's plan at last. I plan to show every species in the galaxy the truth about what they did and what they owe to humanity. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. That's incredibly dangerous, Zara. Changing history on that scale could destroy entire civilizations. Or it could free them, Zara replied. Think about what the galaxy has become. The hegemony rules through fear and lies. They've built their entire civilization on stolen human knowledge, while keeping other species ignorant of the truth. She gestured to the displays around them. Look at the data you've collected. The Altarians are still struggling with basic engineering problems that humans solved centuries ago. The Zephyrians are on the verge of environmental collapse because they never learned proper terraforming techniques. Dozens of species are failing because they only got fragments of human knowledge. But the cost, Sarah said. If we change history, billions of aliens who are alive now might never be born. And 8 billion humans will continue to live and die in an endless loop, Zara countered. How is their current existence any less real than hypothetical aliens who might exist? Marcus stood and paced around the room. There's another problem. Even if we could activate your plan, the hegemony won't just stand by and watch. They have weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Do they? Zara asked. Or do they have weapons that humans designed for them? She accessed the Memory Vault's database and pulled up files on hegemony military technology. Look at this. Their quantum disruptors are based on human research from 2178. Their shield technology comes from human experiments in 2184. Even their faster-than-light communication systems are modified human designs. Tom nodded in understanding. If we restore the original timeline, all of that technology becomes ours again. Exactly, Zara said. They've been using our own weapons to keep us imprisoned. Marcus stopped pacing. But there's still the question of activation. The temporal field around Earth is controlled from within the time loop. Someone would have to enter the field and manually trigger the expansion protocol. And whoever does that would be trapped in the loop forever, Sarah added. They'd experience the same 35 years over and over, never knowing if their mission succeeded. Zara nodded grimly. I know. My younger self built in safeguards to prevent accidental activation. The field can only be triggered by someone with the original access codes, and only from inside the temporal boundary. Do you still have the codes? Marcus asked. I think so, Zara said. The memories are still coming back, but I remember hiding them in my own mind using quantum encryption. They should be accessible once I'm fully awakened. Tom looked troubled. Dr. Chen, this is essentially a suicide mission. You'd be condemning yourself to an eternity of loops to save humanity. Not eternity, Zara corrected. The expansion protocol is designed to take about 50 years to complete once activated. After that, the field will collapse and release everyone. But you'd live those 50 years thousands of times, Sarah pointed out, and you'd never know if it was working. Zara was quiet for a moment, thinking about the magnitude of the choice before her. She could live her current life, false though it was, among the scattered remnants of humanity, or she could sacrifice herself to restore her species to their rightful place in the galaxy. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. We've detected signs that some of the awakened humans aren't handling the knowledge well. 3 of our people have gone to the hegemony authorities and confessed everything. What? Zara stood up quickly. They couldn't bear the weight of knowing the truth, Marcus explained. They turned themselves in, hoping the hegemony would be merciful. Instead, they disappeared completely. We think they were either executed or sent back to the time loop with their memories permanently erased. The implications were terrifying. How many people know about this facility? Too many, Tom admitted. We've been forced to expand our network to find more awakened humans. But every new person is a security risk. Sarah looked at her screen with alarm. Marcus, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures near the station. 3 hegemony cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace, Marcus cursed. They found us. Everyone begin emergency protocols. Destroy all sensitive data and prepare for evacuation. Alarms began to sound throughout the memory vault. Humans rushed to their stations, wiping computer drives and gathering essential equipment. Dr. Chen, Marcus said urgently, you need to decide now. If the hegemony captures you, everything we've worked for will be lost. You're the only one who can activate the restoration protocol. Zara looked around at the humans who had spent centuries preserving the truth about their species. They were willing to die to give her the chance to free humanity. The weight of 8 billion lives pressed down on her shoulders. She made her choice. I'll do it, Zara said firmly. I'll go to Earth and activate the restoration protocol. Marcus nodded with grim respect. Sarah, prepare the stealth ship. Tom, download all essential data to portable drives. We need to get Dr. Chen out of here before the hegemony forces board the station. The memory vault buzzed with urgent activity. Humans moved with practiced efficiency, destroying evidence and preparing for evacuation. Zara watched them work and felt a surge of pride. These people had preserved humanity's legacy for centuries, waiting for this moment. Sarah approached with a small device. This contains all your original research data and the activation codes. Once you're near Earth, this will help restore your complete memories. How will I get to Earth? Zara asked. The hegemony has it heavily monitored. Marcus smiled grimly. We've been planning for this day. We have a ship that can slip between timeline layers, just like the one I used to escape originally. It will take you directly into the temporal field. The station shook as hegemony forces began their assault. Tom looked up from his console with alarm. They're not just boarding the station. They're using temporal disruptors to scan for timeline anomalies. They know exactly what they're looking for. Move faster, Marcus ordered. If they find evidence of our true nature, they'll hunt down every awakened human in the galaxy. Zara followed Sarah through a hidden passage that led to a concealed docking bay. The ship waiting for them was unlike anything she had seen before. It seemed to shimmer and fade, as if it existed in multiple timelines at once. The temporal drifter, Sarah explained. It took us 50 years to build using salvage technology from the original Project Kronos. It can phase in and out of normal space-time. Marcus joined them, carrying data storage devices. The other memory vaults have been warned. They're going into deep hiding until this is over. What if the plan fails? Zara asked. Then humanity remains scattered and forgotten, Marcus said simply. But at least our people in the time loop will be safe. Your younger self designed multiple fallback protocols. They boarded the ship and immediately felt the strange sensation of temporal displacement. The walls seemed to pulse with energy that made Zara's teeth ache. The temporal field around Earth is massive now, Sarah explained as she prepared the ship for launch. We'll have to be careful about entry vectors. If we approach wrong, we could be torn apart by temporal shears. The ship launched silently from Kepler Station, just as hegemony forces breached the memory vault. Through the view screen, Zara watched explosions bloom across the station's hull. She hoped the other humans had escaped safely. As they traveled toward Earth, more of Zara's memories returned. She remembered her younger self's final days before the attack. The knowledge of what was coming had been terrible to bear. She had worked frantically to prepare humanity's last defense, knowing she might never see the results. There's something I need to tell you, Marcus said quietly. The restoration protocol isn't just about changing history. Your younger self discovered something about the nature of time itself. What do you mean? Time isn't linear, Marcus explained. It's more like a web, with multiple possible timelines existing simultaneously. The hegemony didn't just erase humanity from one timeline. They erased us from all possible timelines. Zara felt a chill. But the restoration protocol can fix that? In theory. But activating it will cause what your younger self called a temporal cascade. Every possible timeline where humanity succeeded will try to reassert itself simultaneously. That sounds dangerous. Sarah looked back from the pilot's seat. It could reshape the entire galaxy. Species that never existed might suddenly appear. Others might vanish. Reality itself could become unstable for a while. But it will restore humanity's true place in history, Zara asked. Yes, Marcus said. In every timeline where we succeeded, humanity will be remembered as the species that uplifted half the galaxy. Our achievements will be restored, our people will be free, and the lies the hegemony built their civilization on will crumble. They dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's solar system. The sight took Zara's breath away. Earth hung in space surrounded by a massive temporal field that pulsed with rainbow colors. The field extended beyond the moon's orbit and seemed to be growing even as they watched. It's beautiful, Zara whispered. And incredibly dangerous, Sarah added. Temporal energy readings are off the charts. The field is almost ready for activation. Your younger self timed this perfectly. As they approached the temporal boundary, Zara felt her remaining memories clicking into place. She remembered everything now. The research, the desperate preparations, the terrible knowledge of what humanity would lose. But she also remembered something else her younger self had discovered. Marcus, she said urgently, there's something about the restoration protocol that I didn't tell you. It's not just about humanity. What do you mean? My younger self discovered that the hegemony has done this before. Humanity isn't the first species they've erased from history. There have been others. Dozens of species that achieved too much, became too dangerous, or simply knew too much about the hegemony's true nature. Marcus stared at her. You're saying there are other species trapped in temporal fields? Yes. And when the restoration protocol activates, it will free all of them. The galaxy is about to remember hundreds of lost civilizations. Sarah began the approach to the temporal field. Dr. Chen, we're at the entry point. Once you pass through, there's no coming back. Zara stood and moved toward the airlock. She carried only the memory device and her determination to free her people. I understand. Wait, Marcus said. There's one more thing. We've been monitoring communications from awakened humans across the galaxy. Word of what's happening has spread. If you succeed, you won't just be restoring humanity, you'll be starting a revolution. Good, Zara said firmly. The galaxy has been living a lie for too long. She sealed herself into the escape pod that would carry her through the temporal field. As the pod launched, she felt the strange sensation of time becoming fluid around her. The universe outside became a blur of colors and possibilities. The pod passed through the temporal boundary, and suddenly everything became clear. Below her was Earth as it had been in 2157, blue and green and alive with the lights of human civilization. She could see the space elevators, the orbital habitats, the ships coming and going from distant colonies. This was home. This was what they had lost. The pod landed in a field outside Geneva, near the original Project Kronos facility. Zara climbed out and breathed Earth air for the first time in centuries. It smelled like grass and rain and growing things. She walked toward the facility, carrying the weight of her species' future. In a few hours, she would activate the restoration protocol and begin the process of freeing humanity from temporal prison. The galaxy would remember what they had forgotten, and humanity would reclaim its place among the stars. But first, she had to live through the next 35 years, knowing that she would repeat them over and over until the protocol completed its work. It was a small price to pay for the freedom of 8 billion souls. As she approached the facility where her younger self was working frantically to save humanity, Zara smiled. The future was about to remember its past, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The loop began, and Zara stepped forward to meet her destiny.